What's up, guys and girls? It is Bobby,
And Sean.
And James.
Oh, there we
and we're
go.
back, baby.
We are so back. We're back, episode 65 at least. It has been at least a year, right?
Yeah, let me look it up. I think it's been over a year since our last recording.
Last time I was here was in the spring of 2021.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's
So
it was
I don't know
11
if you
months
guys kept
ago.
going after that or what.
The episode 59, we're back, was
we're
11
back
months
back.
ago.
Okay, see, this is I just everyone knew that this was an annual podcast. I don't know what people have been so upset about us not releasing on a weekly basis. We've been very upfront with this.
Yeah,
Um,
certainly have lives of our own.
Yeah, no, it's just writing fitness programming. So for those of you that are new to the podcast or new to ChronosFit in the last year, we founded this now almost 6 years ago,
Uh,
2017 or 2018.
I think it's 2017. Yeah,
So we founded this 2017 years
almost
ago.
6 years. Almost 6 years this
It's
year.
6 years. Because we didn't like how fitness programming costs money, essentially. We thought it was pretty bad, especially in the Army. Really disappointed with a lot of the Ranger Prep, pre-Ranger programs that a lot of installations that both Bobby and I had been stationed at were running, and really didn't like how it was a game of hide the eight ball, and you had to pay some exorbitant fee in order to even just put your toe in the water to even try to go to Ranger school. So we release daily fitness free programming. We have a couple programs that are free of charge. We have some that cost some money. That money is pretty nominal compared to a lot of the programs that are out there. And all that money goes to our annual scholarship, the Cronus Scholars Program, which I think is now entering its fourth or fifth year,
Mhm.
which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But we're just a free fitness nonprofit that wants people to be more fit in any way, shape, or form. Uh, we've got obviously the three of us that are on screen right now. Bobby and I served together in Ranger Regiment. We were also rasped to Cuddle Buddies, which is probably the highest honor that you can find within the military, just short of I think like Silver Star level. It's Cuddle Buddies. Um, and then James, you know, humble brag, squats more than I think Brian Shaw. Right?
I don't know about that much, but
Okay, but it's very close. The gap is it's like Brian Shaw, James, and then the
Mortals.
mountain from Game of Thrones. So it's very esteemed company that Mr. James Pack lifts in.
right on. Yeah. So we got some military superstars here. And then there's me. So I'm just sort of an undergraduate student and I'm studying nutrition and kinesiology in school, and I do all things coaching related through ChronosFit. So the nutrition coaching and the strength and hypertrophy coaching I take on. Got a few certifications related to that. I'm uh, not too focused, or I don't find that important. I'm mostly dedicated to getting my degrees, and yeah.
And then we got a surgeon. We've got a surgeon on board, doctor, call him doctor.
Well, there's technically two doctors. There's a medical doctor and a juris doctor.
Yes, yeah. I can do open heart as well. I've got that legal authority.
But yeah, so for those that don't know, I'm up at Fort Lewis. I'm in residency right now for general surgery. I'm on my third year of six. So long road here. But yeah, I'm up in Washington State. I'm planning on doing some fellowship too after I'm done residency training, but we will see where I end up with fellowship.
As Bobby mentioned, I am a Juris Doctor. Doctor, I can't speak apparently, which is really good for my field of study. Um, but yeah, I am a securities attorney, so I think that gives me a lot of oomph in programming. I'm no longer in the army, but I still like to maintain my fitness and train as if Ranger School was 2 weeks away because that's a healthy way to live.
Dude, do you still get Ranger School dreams at all?
No, I I'll be honest. In the last 10 years, the most traumatizing event of my life has been waiting for the results of the bar.
Mm.
I can't tell you how stressful that made me compared to literally anything, including like falling asleep on the 249 at Ranger School and wondering if I was going to be dropped.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't infrequently, like it probably like once or twice a month will get dreams of like Ranger School dreams or I'll get like West Point dreams. And they're really bizarre. Like I don't know why I get these dreams or I get like work related dreams. Um, maybe it's just an unhealthy psyche or something. But
Yeah,
literally
it
it's
sounds like
like
there's a lot of trauma there to unpack.
yeah, like the West Point dreams are so it's always the same thing where it's like I'm coming back to school at West Point and I can't find my books and I don't know what class I'm going to and it's shit like that for West Point. Ranger School is just like I'm on in the patrol base and like I can't find like the T40 or something like that. And then like the work ones are always like I'm like getting, just crushed on call or something. It's very
Dude,
strange.
you bring up West Point. Now, for those of you that have been, regular annual followers of this podcast, I have shit on West Point. Um, Pretty much like, it's the Dallas Cowboys of the, NFL. Obviously, Bobby and I are huge Eagles fans, so that makes sense there for that comparison. I have always dogged West Point because socially, I think some of the officers like to bang their rings more than, bang the weights at a gym. But I have a son and I don't want to pay for college. I look at West Point, I'm like, oh my God, he goes into the army, he does what his old man and his grandfather and his great grandfather did. Like, cool. I don't have to pay for anything and I don't have to pay for clothes. He's going to get some weird gray uniform. I'm sure he'll be fine with that. Like, is that like an appropriate reason to push your kid into the in service? Like, not wanting to pay for college? Is that where we're at now?
100%. That is
Yeah.
appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm way ahead of this father's game right now. I'm like I've got it figured out. West Point, not for me, but yeah, you'll take my son. Go.
Yeah, if I could do it over again, I think I would try and uh basically get do better in high school so I could get into West Point and I could, have my education paid for it because now it's sort of biting me in the behind having to fund my education. So yeah.
Well, I think that's a good segue of funding education. We talked about it at the intro, Cronus Scholars Program. Every single year, we've got a Cronus Scholars Program. It's for transitioning veterans, active duty, National Guard. If you're getting out of the military for the purpose of going to get a degree, that can be your undergrad degree, that can be a graduate degree, that can be going to do some sort of a fellowship that includes like welding or any kind of tech specialty program. The Cronus Fit Scholars Program is there to help with those transition costs. You can put the money, which this year you can put to anything from clothing to the transportation to get to that new place, a down payment if you're, got a rent and security, books. It's literally to help like merge the gap that might be there because if the GI Bill or Yellow Ribbon programs don't kick in automatically, there shouldn't be a need to stress as you prepare for the next, profession that you're about to enter. And so that's where Cronus Scholars was kind of born, and we've been doing that for a number of years.
Yeah, why don't you say like sort of like what the requirements are? I know there's an
Oh,
is
did
there anything
James
else you
freeze?
need?
Oh, we
Oh no.
lost them. We lost you for a
Wait, oh,
sec.
he's back. He's back.
Oh, I'm back. Okay, yeah. I was just saying, what there's like an essay that's required, and then like, you also need to like upload pictures. And are there any other requirements that people need to apply?
Yes. Sorry. So yeah, you've got two essays that you've got to write. They're service oriented. I think they're like 400 word minimums. You've got to send a picture in your uniform while you were in service. Uh, your DD 214 scrub for any sensitive information that's on there. And I think a letter of rec has been on there, but it's a really simple. It shouldn't take you that long. If you head to cronusfit.org and go to the Cronus Scholars page, you can see like the previous scholars that we've had, what they're up to. We've got some really impressive people that have come out of the military, and we've been Very fortunate and humbled to be able to even help them out and be part of this journey as they go on and do some really incredible stuff at some pretty incredible institutions. So if you have any questions, you can hit any one of us up at any time, and reach out and make an inquiry if you got an idea. And if you're like a leader in a formation somewhere in the service, it doesn't have to be the Army. It also does not have to be the special operations branches. You can apply. Please do. Like, this is why Cronus Fit is a nonprofit. This is why we exist, and this is why some of our programs cost $20, because we want to help people as they transition.
Not to mention, this is like $2,500, which is, for anyone getting out, that's a significant chunk of change. They, like I said, we literally just give you money to spend it however you need to. So it's not a very, in my opinion, not a very difficult application process. It requires a little bit of writing, but couple out like an hour's worth of work for $2,500. Not bad, not a bad trade.
Yeah, and a sweet picture. It has to be super sweet. I don't want to see any BFAs on a rifle if you're sending us a pic for the application. That is, I didn't put that on the website, but that should be the bare minimum. Do not send a pic from like JRTC.
Cool guy pics only.
Cool. Yeah, very cool. Like John Wayne, your helmet, like whatever the new TikTok trends are, stay modern, stay cool, stay breezy.
What else do you guys want to talk about?
I know we kind of came in here hot, like, we're coming back after a year. You think there'd be a lot to talk about. Like, I don't know, the fact that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl and stole it from the Eagles. It's I'm
sad.
so bitter about that. So very bitter.
Dude, so we have some long guys that do mow our lawn or whatever. And we have an Eagles flag. We had an Eagles flag all season out there. And then as soon as the Super Bowl was over, I went up front and took out the Eagles flag. And then the next week, the long guys came and they are like, "Hey, we're having to the Eagles flag." I'm like, Don't even start. They're Cowboys fans, so I think kiss my ass.
Yeah, I don't like. Why do they even bother talking? Like,
kiss my ass.
Their team's awful. I mean, like,
yeah,
historically awful. I love how all the Cowboys fans have said like it's America's team, and the Jerry Jones and his 90s era domination. That literally means nothing. Most of the people that are in the military now weren't even alive in the 90s. All of the soldiers that are coming in, it's crazy, are like born 94, 95, 96. Like, they weren't even old enough to be aware that the Cowboys were decent.
You mean 2005, 2006?
Oh God, yeah. Oh no. Oh no. We're old.
Yeah, now like the to enlist, I think it's like 2005 is the birth date.
That feels so young. Like, you didn't even watch Rocket Power growing up.
Yeah, growing up. Yeah, it'd be 18, if you're 18 years old now today, you had to have been born in 2005.
Oof.
Well, I'm not good at math.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
It's really tough.
Getting old.
Okay, so here's one that I'm sure we have such an aging population that follows us now on Instagram. Getting older sucks. Like, I remember as a PL being like, I don't know why my squad leaders or platoon sergeant, they're not keeping up. I don't get it. Like, how are you not running a 6-minute flat for several miles? When I hit 30, I thought, no, I'm 34 now. Oh my God. Like, I am beyond blown away by like the E7, E8s, especially in the Ranger Regiment, like seeing the standard that they maintained. Because it hurts. Like, I swear to God, it hurts to run a 36-minute 5 mile. Like, that used to be a jog. Now it is like I finish and I go, I'm done. I'm done for the week.
Dude, I 100% agree. I remember too when I was like lieutenant and my like NCO was like, just wait until you hit 30. And I'm like, no, I'll be good. Like, I had 2 days until I die. 2 days until I die. And then anyways, I hit 30 and it started going kind of downhill. I've had 2 knee surgeries in the last year. It's definitely getting work. It sucks getting old. Don't recover the same. Just gotta hop on the
metabolism is slower.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought I'd be the person that was like, I wonder what I should be eating. And then I think, oh, Yeah, my body definitely blows up when I have ice cream. I should probably stay away from ice cream. Where before it'd be like, oh, it's a Tuesday night. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna eat half of this Breyers mint chocolate chip, which by the way, I don't eat Breyers. That is like a very subpar, substandard ice cream for those of you that can eat ice cream and it like doesn't destroy you any longer. Um, but yeah, not anymore. It is so pathetic.
Is there are either of you guys considering TRT? Because that seems to be the new thing these days, where people they hit their 30s or maybe more like 40s, but basically it seems to be handed out like candy, right?
Where is this being handed out like candy?
It's really not that hard, I hear. So I have a
Just go
friend
online.
who's well, Bobby. I know a guy named Bobby Zhang who could maybe write you a script. I'm just kidding. Um, but I have a buddy who's like 29 or 30. He's just a few years older than me, and he's on it. And his T levels were, I believe they were like just under 300 NGL per DL, nanograms per deciliter. So basically, that is just under the range. So if you test just under the range or even a tiny bit above, it sort of depends. But basically, yeah, you get that stuff RX'd if there's a medical need, and it's not that hard for there to be a medical need, basically.
I
Well,
would
we
be very cautious about the TRT. I think that certainly, there's definitely in pop culture, it's becoming more and more acceptable for TRT. But at the same time, though, like, barring any legitimate like medical issues, most guys until they're like in their 40s shouldn't need TRT. And then you have to consider like the long-term effects of being on TRT in terms of, a dependency on exogenous testosterone to maintain your own levels. So those are all things that I consider before doing TRT is that, you have to pay typically cash only. So you're paying, X amount every month the rest of your life, more or less, for the TRT.
Well, that goes back to the question, like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, if you are a young, healthy male that's producing a normal amount of testosterone, do you really need that extra oomph for what you're doing in your day to day and what your profession is to get to that next level? I remember talking about that with you, Bobby. I mean, I feel like years ago, like if you were in the military, if you were in the infantry, if you're in combat arms, like should the army have been handing this stuff out? Like we want 1980s era baseball players, running around in kit, smashing down doors, jumping out of planes, or are we fine with the natural levels that the human body produces in order to maintain whatever level of excellence that the military is known for?
Yeah, I think that's like, I think kind of an ethical question too. Like, obviously, we want our military slash special forces, special operators to be, the apex of human performance. And there's certainly a lot of resources that are provided to, push guys towards that, short of like completely like sanctioning, performance enhancing drugs. But I'm not sort of saying it's a bad thing. You kind of would imagine that there's certainly a good reason for wanting, the tip of the spear guys to have every advantage possible. But then, that brings up like the ethical questions of like down the road of, you like max out. I like to think about like your body has a bit of like it's like a battery, you have a bandwidth, whatever. And then if you max it out when you're young, you're not leaving much left in the later days. And certainly like you've seen like, senior NCOs that are getting out at like 40 and then they're essentially broken at that point. So that's some things to consider that, Robin Peter Pay Paul type of situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the ideal case is you want to use like natural interventions first and make sure you're actually living a healthy life. So, like you're getting enough sleep, you're actually exercising and training because like some guys will just depend on TRT without training. And then you have like a decent diet and you're also managing your stress levels. Because if all those things are shit and you hop on TRT, it's not going to be the best band-aid. But also for the reasons that Bobby said, that like, once you get on it, you got to stay on it basically forever, unless you want to basically be a bitch. You'll just have like really low T coming if you were to come off abruptly. But yeah, I do think it's a big decision for sure. But whether or not we should, give it to our military, like Sean asked, I'll leave that to you two to talk about.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's or
I'm out now. Like, so but I thinking back on whether it should have been, provided by the Army for these certain units or in certain conditions. But it also makes me think of like SARMs. Would SARMs be an appropriate substitute to, TRT, HGH? I'm just naming D-ball. Am I still in I'm still in the zone of testosterone here, guys?
PEDs, yeah.
PED,
PEDs, yeah.
boom, acronyms.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, you can like make the argument because you can say that the military already kind of juices guys a little bit, talk about like modafinil or like sleeping pills too. So like those are interventions or pharmaceutical agents that are designed to improve mental readiness in terms of like getting guys to fall asleep with like Ambien or like keeping them awake with modafinil, which like that happens in or they used to, I don't know if they still do it, but that was, when we were in still a thing. But then, where is that line? Where do they draw the line between like, medication versus like exogenous testosterone or, drugs? It's very a shifty line and there's not a really good answer for that.
yeah, 100%. Um, with testosterone, it's tricky though because of like the long-term issue and long-term effects and having to stay on it. But I think drawing that line, it's sort of like you said, you can't really do it. But at least with modafinil and like Ambien, like the drugs you named, like those are, in and out. Those are very short term, and they're also generally backed by more research, I would think, than testosterone. A lot of steroid research got sort of abandoned at first, but it still continues on today in some studies. But yeah.
Okay, well, I'll pose this question to you two men of science. Obviously, the United States has a huge obesity crisis. It's impacting, I think, numbers for the military, not only getting new soldiers, Marines, airmen,
Space Force.
astronauts, space forces, um, Coast Guardies, and sailors. We're having a problem getting them into the military to begin with. When they come in, I think a lot of them still are generally overweight because there's a concern of, if they can't even meet the basics or excuse me, the minimums to get into basic, now they're going to create like some pre-basic programs before they're shipped off to, their initial training facilities. Are we going to get to a point where we have to provide these kind of drugs in order to get their fitness levels to where they need to be in order to train, fight, sustain, and win against near peer threats?
That's a pretty good question. All the rage right now is like the semaglutide, the Wegovy, or whatever it is. I can't remember the brand names, but like semaglutide or the GLP-1 agonists are like there's all hotness right now. Or like a lot of there's actually been some pretty big studies that look at weight loss with the semaglutide, or whatever. Where it's now, I think it looks like that's going to be the next like anti-obesity medication, especially in healthcare. I've read some of the studies, but I haven't dug too deep into it. But I saw something about how there's a decrease in weight, like significant decrease in weight with people that take it, but also it's a decrease in lean body mass too. So like you're losing not just fat, but you're losing your muscle and connective tissue and bone density as well with the fat. So it's not necessarily, if the end goal is like losing weight, sure, you're gonna lose weight, but there's definitely some more secondary and third order side effects that aren't quite understood yet. So like when you take these medications, I think that's also there's an increased risk of like bone fractures um, uh, or like higher increased rate of injuries. So, the military population, obviously that's not a good thing because, if you're rucking 90 pounds, you can't break your leg in the middle of a ruck. So, these medications are interesting in the fact that for most like sedentary Americans, it's probably like not a terrible thing to think about. At the same time though, like, diet, exercise, doing the right things also doesn't cost you anything. And it's not like you're, messing up your body down the road with taking these medications.
Well, James,
Yeah,
you do a lot of the nutrition stuff, and like you are just, Bobby obviously has a background in it as well. But I think a lot of people feel um, some anxiety when they think about taking on a new program and seeing results. Generally, what would be like an appropriate result period be for someone to like stick with a program to continue doing it before they either see the physical difference, feel the physical difference, and then ultimately maybe see that, that scale tip in the direction they want?
yeah, good question. So it sort of depends on how serious you are and how much effort you're actually putting in. You know what I mean? So if you're a gen pop guy and you're just like, ah, yeah, I want to lose like 10 pounds or whatever. Um, and you're not going to exercise and your only intervention is going to be like, oh, I'm going to walk after dinner. You can't expect much, you know what I mean? But more up our audience's alley would be like, hey, look, I'm trying to improve my body composition, I'm getting ready for the school, and I'm willing to commit to my diet, my sleep, my stress levels. And with clients, we usually see results, or like basically progress, like whether it's movement on the scale, increase in lifts or repetitions or whatever. So some sort of a marker for progress improve after like just a few weeks. Especially fat loss. Fat loss can happen pretty quickly, like 1 week in a calorie deficit, and you'll drop like, a couple of pounds. But that isn't really what it's nice, it's good that we know we're making progress. But what's more important is the bigger picture and being able to like continue that, get that ball rolling for like, not just 1 week, but like 8 weeks, 12 weeks when we're done working together for the rest of your life, sort of thing. So that is sort of what I try and facilitate with my service or with our service, is that making sure that we're getting people with the right habits and the right behaviors to sustain this long term. And ideally, some cases we have clients stay around longer to basically just, after they reach their goal, but to also basically learn how to sustain it. So we wean them off tracking calories, get them to eat more intuitively, that sort of thing. So they know how to eat without carrying their food scale with them everywhere, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say that's one of the probably the biggest takeaways I got when I was like really diving deep into like my physique and like tracking every macro I ate wasn't necessarily like become pathological and how I was tracking macros, but like understanding like eyeballing like a meal about roughly how much I'm eating too. It's like not being able to say like, oh, it's probably like 30 grams of carbs in this like meal or something like that, and just being able to understand like how much I do need to eat to like maintain or to like lose weight. And I think that's like the biggest takeaway is like once you do it for a while, you kind of get a second, you just kind of know like roughly how much you're eating and how you're eating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With
go
food
ahead.
though, it made me think, in case my sister and brother-in-law are listening, which I highly doubt, but they're vegans. I know they're vegans. I'm sure everyone in the world knows they're vegans at this point because they tell everyone that's what vegans do. Um, what about like a specific diet? Like if someone's on a carnivore diet or a vegan diet, like are those kind of things sustainable in your eyes, James? Like when you talk to clients or when people ask questions, like is it a I want to live, this paleo lifestyle for 6 months, or is it a I'm going to be a vegan because I saw a cow cry on YouTube and now I'm changed forever?
Yeah. So generally, I don't think restrictive diets, whether it's cutting out a macronutrient or a food group or whatever, are really sustainable long term. And I think a lot of the testimonials that show that people succeed with them, in my opinion, that sort of stems off of a theoretical model called self-determination theory, and how one of the psychological needs is relatedness, and that can foster intrinsic motivation and improve people's adherence to a diet. And basically, what these diet tribes are a clear example of the relatedness component of that model, in that they have sort of like a community of other people doing the similar diet goal as them, and they're able to sustain it long term because it's just a communal effort with them. But for if you don't have that community, and if you're just like a regular guy just trying to lose weight, guy or gal trying to lose weight, I think your best bet is to sort of, and this is going to sound really cliche, but find what works for you. So if you're trying to lose weight specifically, then you got to start with some form of cognitive restriction and ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice? So it's going to look a little different for everybody. Ideally, you don't want it to be carbs. Ideally, you don't want it to be protein. And ideally, you don't want it to be like essential food groups. So, in my opinion, it's best to just take a little bit from everywhere. You know what I mean? So, you don't have to cut out dairy, carbs completely, but you could cut out a little bit of everything, and that kind of gives you a slice of, all the nutrients, right? So,
Yeah, I would say like in my personal experience, I did a lot of intermittent fasting back in the day. I still do intermittent fasting relatively decent amount, like probably 2 or 3 days a week at intermittent fast. But in my mind, that you know, all diets come down to like restricting type a restrictive idea of like reducing total calories. And for me, I found that in my like mental psyche, I'm kind of like I can't really have very low self-control. So if I like mentally restrict myself to only eating a certain amount of time during a certain amount of time during the day, I find that I don't eat as terribly as if I would just freely eat. So that person works for me, but it's not everyone's the same. But I found that works for me by intermittent fasting.
Dude, I remember when you did intermittent fasting, I was just trying to look up the name of the restaurant. Um,
Oh,
that
Vallarta, baby.
yeah, we're at we're at Benning and we go to dinner here, and obviously nobody knows that Bobby only ate one meal a day at this point. And they're like, we have an all you can eat challenge. You have to finish like a gigantic plate sized burrito. And I think it was like a taco and a soda.
And like I think it
Um,
was fries or something too.
yeah, and so like it like seems somewhat doable. You're like, okay, like obviously if you fill up on chips, salsa, and guac, like this may hurt. So Bobby sat down. Bobby housed it. Not only did he house it, he ordered like more food on top of it. And this was like the first night they were running it. So I was like, okay, like this is great. I'm clearly not ready for this challenge yet because I've been eating all day, but I'm going to come back. I went back with my buddy Nick and was telling him, oh, yeah, Bobby did this. Like, it's an easy challenge. You're not going to have to pay for your food. Like, you're going to destroy him. They added so much because of you. Because of you, it became like it was one of those burritos. I think it was like a plate sized quesadilla, like three different tacos, fries. Like it, I still think you'd probably be able to do it, but it just made me go, Bobby's just ruined somebody's like creative juices. Like somebody was so happy to introduce this and say, nobody's going to be able to eat this. And Bobby comes in night one and says, fuck you, I'm hungry.
Yeah, those were the days. But also thinking about it back then too, like the activity level in those days too, like I was for sure like probably still net negative a lot with how much I was training. So I was still doing like 2 days back then, on top of like the army stuff, and then still only eating one meal a day.
Yeah,
dang, you
that
you
it
live
was
the
unreal.
OMAD life.
It was essentially OMAD. Like I'd go home and then like just start housing food when I would get home.
Well, I still remember though when you went off and I was visiting you down in Voorhees, and like for breakfast, it's still one of the biggest bowls of breakfast I've had in my entire life. But it had everything. There was beef, there were eggs, there was rice, there was avocado, there was chopped up peppers. And I remember thinking, like, well, this is fine. This is why I'm not as jacked as Bobby, because I've not committed myself to eating that much food. Like I am fine with being lean and having a wind sail for a nose. But if ever I wanted to get on your level, I've seen you eat enough now where I'm pretty sure I could catch you.
Just a lot of food. Just gotta eat big to get big.
Yeah, and just continuously, you know, breaking your ACLs so that I can catch up with my legs. Still
Yeah.
far behind.
Still working on it. My biggest thing right now is my knee, my legs is that like my left leg doesn't fire as well still. And it's been like months of like doing physical therapy and it's still like not firing right. It's like when I squat, like I go to the one side or whatever, to my good side. I think I'm starting to like develop like a like imbalance with my legs. So I'm still not quite sure how to fix this imbalance. It's messed up.
Split squats.
Even with split squats, it doesn't fire right. Like I can do the same weight, but like it doesn't get as tired as the other leg, which is like super straight. I can't explain it. It's really weird.
I have a safety bar squat now because I'm old.
The SSB, I
Ooh,
love the SSB.
It's the only way. In fact, so Bobby, you were talking about like one leg not firing. For years, I was always insecure about my squat stance because I mean, I've looked everything up from like, oh yeah, tall guys have to go, to low bar. I've always wanted to do high bar because when CrossFitters that are 4'2" do it, it looks so cool and they look so powerful. But my right foot, no matter what, is like a full inch and a half to 2 inches ahead of my left. I have like lined up chalk on the floor. I don't know whether it's like I've got a weird twist, but like now it's to the point where when I do splits or Bulgarians, like my right knee, my right leg is far less secure and comfortable than my left is. And I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to rehab that.
Yeah, I think like it comes down to does it matter, you know? And that's what I've had to struggle with a lot too as like a doctor is like I probably don't need to be like super fit. Granted, like I'm in pretty good shape still, but 33-year-old Bobby versus like 24-year-old Bobby is, significantly different. But also at the same time, like a 24-year-old Bobby was also, in major regimen and had to do all the physical stuff. So I think like coming to terms with getting older and you like don't necessarily need to do all these things too. I think it's been like the biggest adjustment that I've made is getting older and training as an older is that it doesn't matter. So I do like a lot more cardio now. Like I do Peloton like 3 or 4 times a week. Probably like do 2 hours of cardio or 3 hours of cardio a week, just for like long term health wise. Cardiovascular health, not necessarily being as jacked as possible, but having a well rounded fitness base, I think is important.
Is your
Yeah,
Peloton favorite instructor like a mean person or a nice person?
It's Alex Toussaint. Alex Toussaint is my boy.
Nice or mean?
I think he's nice. I don't know.
You hear that, Alex? You're nice.
He's a
Congratulations.
If I can meet at AT, I would love to meet Alex Toussaint someday. What are you saying, James? Sorry.
yeah. I was just saying, I feel that for sure because like priorities shift throughout the life cycle. So like, when you're a doctor, probably versus like you said when you were in the military, like you don't prioritize your fitness as much. You want to kind of have a job to do that takes up more of your time and whatnot. I'm taking 9 classes right now, and it's taken quite a toll on my training. I've only showed up to the gym like 3, 4 days a week versus like before the semester it was like 6 or 7. And it'll only adjust like that throughout the life cycle. I'm sure when we get to our 50s and our 60s, the basically it'll be more about like, hey, I made it up the stairs today, sort of thing. Or as you get older, I got out of bed. So my point with this is basically look, it's important to keep like that realistic expectation too with how hard you could take your training and what you can get out of it and stuff.
Yeah, just at this point, I just want to look good naked and not have a heart attack at age 40. It's kind of my goals.
I want to be able to maintain like being in the 1,000 pound club, obviously just for push press. That's it. But like being able to run a sub 20-minute 5K, uh, like deadlifting close to 5, try to squat as close to 4 as possible, and benching over 3. Like I feel like those are for a mid 30s. That's like a decent goal to have if there's a person that has a background with some sort of fitness regime. But yeah, getting over 40, I don't know. Like I program for my parents and have them do some stuff, but it really does make me think of like the OG CrossFit where they started putting out videos. Here, take bottles of antifreeze and practice like,
Oh
getting off
yeah,
the
yeah.
couch with them and, being shot. And you're like, why are they programming like this? And like, now I understand, like getting old really sucks.
Yeah, I think like being functionally fit when you're older is even more important. But it's also like the idea of like putting in the energy and capacity when you're young to build that base and then progressing that throughout life. Because like we all know that like it's harder to get back in shape than to stay in shape.
What do you use for the motivator for that? Because my biggest thing with a lot of the workouts that I do, and I still do all of the ones for the military prep side of the house. Like, I got to know like what works and what doesn't. But like getting that motivation, knowing that when I do this program or when I do this workout, I'm going to be 2 rounds lower than I would have 4 years ago. Or when I'm doing my running intervals, I'm going to be a full 10 seconds slower than I would have, 3 years ago. It is like I'm almost paralyzed by the fear of not being as good as I was when I was younger, and that's normal. But like, it's hard to get over that, to get and actually just go do the fucking workout.
Yeah, I think like in my mind it's just like, I just tell myself it probably doesn't really matter to be like crushing the weights or like doing as performing as high as you were before. Like 10 years ago, for sure you probably been, doing everything much better, your times and the weights are better. But like I was just saying, like it probably doesn't really matter that much too in all your life, your goals in that period point in your life. Like right now you're like a lawyer, like the most physical activity you're gonna do is what, like walking across the street with your briefcase.
Well, I don't have to carry that. They've got wheels now, so I just kind of pull it.
Right. So like, it doesn't really matter that you can do these. But then I also frame it like, I never want my fitness to like hold me back. So like when we go on hikes or I go skiing or things like that, outdoor stuff, I never want to be like feel like, that I can't do something physically. So that's also like the idea that I have is like it's over kind of, being well rounded and not having any shortcomings in my fitness that would, be a detriment to living my life.
Yeah, I just tell myself that if I don't do this, then it'll be even worse. So, the alternative is just not doing it, and by doing nothing, even though it's not as good, even though you may not do as good as what you were doing, back in the day, if you do nothing, then it'll just be even worse. So you got to do something, right?
I think that's true. My big one when I found out my wife was pregnant and then when our son was born was, oh, I've got to be like that dude that he looks up to and goes, okay, that is the normal thing. Like that is fit. I think the big whole culture of dad bods, be happy and comfortable and positive all you want about your body, but don't try to act like if you were 22 years old and some, hey, this is what you're going to look like in 12 years, like you'd be okay with that. So I just want to be functionally fit, like we were talking about. Like I've got like a 150-pound sandbag in the garage that I use probably 2 to 3 times a week. I'm picking something up, like when I eventually pick him up and slam him to the ground because he wants to wrestle dad when he's 12 or 13 years old. Um, but I also want to stay fit because I want to be invited on Physical 100. Look, if you've not seen Physical 100, I think all of you could agree after I describe it, it's right up our alley. I know we're not Korean. I know we don't live in Korea. I know we're not Korean fitness Instagrammers or TikTokers. But I think there could be a compelling argument to be made that we should be on Physical 100 version 2 when they start recasting. It is a phenomenal. I think it's one of the best shows Netflix has put out, just behind like Narcos Mexico, Vikings, uh, and then yeah, that's it. Maybe Too Hot to Handle. I've never seen it, but it's always recommended.
Yeah, although before we go off on the tangent about Netflix and Physical 100, I do want to say that you bringing up the whole point about you like working with a sandbag. Like my training has definitely shifted in that it's less about like barbell and like strength movements for sure, and it's more like dumbbells, kettlebells, sandbags, things like that, like more functional movements rather than pure strength. I also do like I've also been doing a lot more hypertrophy work too, like just like bodybuilding type style things. But that's just like as you get old, you kind of figure out like what works for you and like what you do need to do and when you don't need to do. Like, I don't necessarily need to be like doing like a super strength hypertrophy cycle still, but I still want to like be fit enough or like functionally fit. So I do like kettlebells and sandbag stuff. That's like one thing that I thought was a good point to highlight about trying to do different style of workouts.
Did you guys
Uh,
finish Physical 100? Like, see the whole season?
oh
Oh
yeah.
my God, yes.
Ah,
Yes.
man,
Shocked
I
by
only
the
saw the
winner.
first two episodes.
Absolutely shocked by the winner.
I
I
mean, there's
thought the guy I thought was going to win all season. Like, there's no way. There's no way. He gave up. He quit. I do not think that he pushed until he had nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, I'll say like no spoilers. I won't tell you who wins, James, but I wasn't personally not very surprised by who won because, with the methodology that
But I thought that guy had it all. I thought he was the full package. It is so good looking. Like that was the face of that show. James, clearly, you probably know who we're generally alluding to. But maybe our preferences are different. What you consider super attractive is super ugly to me. But this man was a specimen. Like, and I'm not talking about the MLB pitcher. I don't know how that guy got as far as he did in this
Dude,
competition.
he's a man. I do like Nipper.
I should have been there. That should have been me. Okay. Like, I've got better tattoos. I'm better looking. And I would have been way more camera friendly. Whenever he was on camera, he was quiet, humble, mature, all the things that you'd want to be as a role model and a professional athlete. I'm camera ready.
Should have done the casting call when they. The only problem is you have to learn. You would obviously have to learn some Korean to be.
I wouldn't. He didn't know any Korean.
Yeah, he did. He was
He
some
didn't.
Korean.
No, he didn't. He knows how to say like umpire. That's an awful call. Like he doesn't know any
He
Korean.
knows a little Korean. He can speak a little Korean.
What's the is kamsamida? Isn't that like, hey, what's up?
That means thank
That's
you,
like
but
thank you. Yeah.
Okay,
close
sure.
enough.
I'll say that when someone says that was a really great match. Congratulations on getting to the final round of 10. Like there is my Korean little blurb that they can throw up for the next episode trailer. I don't know. Cronus Fit fam, we got to make this happen. Okay. I am ready. I want my body to be just covered in whatever white material that they do to make the mold of my body. Okay. Like I wouldn't crush it either. And like when they smash their torsos, we haven't described the show. We've done a really bad job at teeing this up. Okay. Physical 100 takes the physical top 100 people in Korea, a lot of Olympic athletes, a lot of people from the military over there, a lot of just kind of fitness Instagrammers and influencers. And then they make them go through these competitions where they're like wrestling for a 20-pound medicine ball. They're doing, kind of team events. If you've been in the Army, what is it? SLTs? No, that's the swing landing trainer at Airborne School. What's the thing?
LR's the leadership reaction
Yeah,
course.
yeah, that thing. They're doing that, but kind of on steroids, probably most of them, with some sort of heavy apparatus. Like that is stuff that I absolutely want to do. And so they cut down the field essentially by half at almost every single phase of the competition. I think there are like 6 phases total. It's really impressive stuff by the time they get to the 5, 10 fittest people in Korea. But it is it's a really, I think it could have been edited to be a little bit shorter, but it's so entertaining. And they're so like the bodies were so good. I could have just stared all day. They just like the types of jacked. I didn't think there was that many types of jacked. I was like, okay, you got your bodybuilder jacked, your CrossFit jacked, but then there was like dancer jacked, there was snowboarder jacked, there were rugbies, there were wrestlers. I mean, it was like it motivated me to get into the gym. It motivated me enough that after I watched the show, I went and lifted the same way that after I saw Thor Ragnarok, I immediately went home and did curls.
It's a pretty good show. I was kind of curious about if they could ever pull that off in America. I don't think they would ever be able to pull it off in America. Like there'd be too many reality TV shows, like your Bradley Martin, your Instagram, your influencers trying to get in there, and then all the true I mean, could you imagine I don't know, what's his face? The
Liver King.
Yeah, Liver King doing this.
Yeah, but any of the NFL athletes, was it not Sam Darnold? He's the awful quarterback that used to play for the Jets. I think he just retired after playing with the Rams, the defensive player, linebacker.
Aaron Donald?
King. Yeah. Why do I think his name started with Sam? Yeah, football.
But yeah, it'd be interesting if they did that in America, but I don't think they would be able to because there's such a wide variety, too many people to draw from.
Yeah, can you imagine a Brian Shaw? I mean, that would just backhanding somebody and just taking the medicine ball.
But also the show is very wholesome too, Korean culture. People are very polite and very encouraging. And
oh my
there's
God,
no way that'd be reproducible in America.
They were thanking each other when they would lose. They would say it was such an honor to go up against
Yeah.
them
Thank
in
you for the
whatever.
competition. Yeah.
Thank you. You know, I will try my best. I will give it my all. I think this team has what it takes. And you're like, that's the kind of positivity that like America needs. I can only imagine how much animus people would have against, you know, their other competitors, how much shit they would be talking. It it is like such a I almost think that it was like produced by like Korean tourism branch. Like somebody
Could be.
said, let's get a bunch of incredibly gorgeous Koreans all fit to go on this competition that should bring out the worst in people, but let's have them be incredibly polite, humble, and you know, motivate each other through the competition. Like I want to go to Korea. I if I had seen this while I was like a lieutenant, I would have been like, I volunteer. I'll send me there. Whatever that duty station is, I will go. Nicest people you could have ever put on camera in that situation.
I did enjoy my time in Korea. I do like Korea a lot.
I have still not been there, despite being Korean.
Well, I think again, we should petition Physical 100 version 2 to have the three of us on. We would bring like the commentary that it would need for an American audience. Like you don't have to put the subtitles on for 99% of the population. You know, we'd be in every single shot, like in the background going, I'm doing faces for those of you
The
that aren't
super
watching on
animation,
YouTube.
too.
Yeah.
So I know that James had put up some question like on Instagram for some Q&As. You guys want to like transition like some Q&A questions from the gram?
Yeah, I
Sure.
got them right in front of me actually.
Nice.
All right. So first one is training to improve ACFT/prep for selection while short on time, in parentheses, 3 to 4 days per week. So they want to know, how can they how can they improve the ACFT and prep for selection while basically doing, less frequency training, only being able to train 3 to 4 days a week.
Sounds kind of weird being able to train 3 or 4 times a week.
It's like asking for a lot. It's like a Hail Mary. I want to be able to stay good at
Yeah.
everything at all times with limited training. The biggest thing that I emphasize on any sort of prep, whether it's going to like a RASP to not so much Ranger School, but an SFAS is like cardio. Cardio is king. So if you only have 3 or 4 days a week, generally I model like a lot of the military prep off of a 10K to 20K run program. So in those 3 to 4 days, like you are spending probably anywhere from 35 to 60 minutes running, or doing maybe a you know low intensity cardio and then basic weightlifting. But you've got to if you got 3 or 4 days a week, you need at least an hour and a half for each one of those days to really optimize that training plan.
Yeah, I would say like a 3 or 4 sessions a week doesn't seem doable to train for a selection. ACFT maybe, but like to train for like a selection type thing, you're gonna need to spend like 15 to 20 hours a week training for a selection. Correct me if I'm wrong if you guys think differently, but I don't think that's possible or you'd be very successful training for a selection with like 3 or 4 sessions a week unless you're training for like 4 hour sessions for these sessions.
Yeah.
So if your time's limited, you have to be realistic with your goals. Like, I would say it's probably not realistic to expect to do well at a selection doing 3 or 4 sessions a week. Like, maybe train for the ACFT, you could probably be pretty successful doing that 3 or 4 times a week. But to train for like a selection or like a big type of, you know, gate, I would probably be very hesitant to say that you'd be, very successful doing that.
And I hope it's not the case that you only have 3 to 4 days a week because of like a chain of command thing,
Yeah.
because that's also been very apparent at some units I've been in where they don't provide that time. And so it really is a challenge because I've seen, squad level PT that is just it's pathetic. Like it can't get any worse. You've got a squad leader that maybe grew up on the whole like death before dismount culture, only believes in doing bench press, um, can't see their feet without like bending over or taking a mirror in front of their face. Uh, like they're not mobile, and so you're wondering if I get off work at 5 to 6, every single night, or you even at that point also have a family to consider, like it will seem impossible. And I think you really have to, if you've got the goal and the aspiration set that you want to go join, an elite formation, and your chain of command isn't supporting you, you need to have the backbone to say, okay, I'm going to go my platoon sergeant. Your platoon sergeant doesn't support you. All right, I'm going to go to my first sergeant. First sergeant doesn't support you. Sergeant major. Like, you keep doing that, it might make you feel like you're burning bridges, like you're going to get targeted by, your immediate supervisors, because they don't maybe think that it's important, that instead you should be focused on whatever table for gunnery. But you're going to find somebody at some point that's going to want to invest that time in you. And so, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, why is this new soldier who wants to go and better himself being prevented from doing it because people that have some jaded view of that formation that he aspires to join? And so it really, like, have that confidence to have that conversation. You are an adult, you're in the military. I know a lot of times it doesn't feel like that because you are so micromanaged at times, but you are an 18-plus-year-old man, woman. If you can tell somebody no, if you have the authority that you can tell somebody that you're commanding no, you should also have that confidence to tell that to somebody that works above you and have a realistic conversation.
Boom. All right. Next question is, how long should the functional fitness program take? And they're referring to like session duration. Um, I I've actually been asked this a lot, like from clients and just like seeing Q&As. And Bobby, are you a sadist? Because a lot of people say that functional fitness is hard as shit, and like they're just burned out. They can't finish it. They can't do it longer than like 3 weeks. I've I literally talked to a client yesterday who told me that.
Yeah, I would say like in the ideal world, it should be 2 sessions a day. Like you have your conditioning and medcon session and then a strength and lifting session. That's like the ideal world. And honestly, a lot of functional fitness, I probably should modulate and turn down a lot of it. Because it is a lot of volume. But, it is going to be pretty effective if you're able to dedicate the time and recovery into that, from personal experience. But it does require a big time suck. So I would, for functional fitness specifically, when it's like a 4 session or 4 piece day, training day, splitting it up into 2 pieces is, I think, the most effective way to do it.
I definitely back what Bobby's saying. If you can split it and do 2 a days, when, like, I would a lot of times be following what Bobby was putting out, especially for the strength components. I would sometimes either get to the gym at like 6 at Carson, and then I would stay to 8 because PT was supposed to go from 6:30 to 8, and that was when I was in a position on staff where it's like, okay, you're the fittest person on staff. We're not going to make you come to formation. And the HHC commander didn't have much authority. At least I didn't let him have much authority. And so I would do that. Then if I couldn't, then I would be like, all right, I'll do a 6:30 to 7:30 and then get back to work, but then use my lunchtime. But yeah, like I think a lot of it, if you're taking like adequate rest and really want to hit those pieces, like probably total for the day, like 2 hours to 2.5 tops.
Yeah, it's like being efficient with your time too, because like I obviously don't program like the cool down, like the warm up and cool down stuff and recovery stuff into it. But like realistically, the pieces themselves shouldn't, like the strength piece, depending on like how I'm programming it, usually about like 3 or 4 working sets for most of the strength stuff. So like you could realistically do that in like 15, 20 minutes. And then all the metcons usually are less than 20 minutes. The conditioning pieces can take a while, but that's when you want to split up like the conditioning in the morning session or in the afternoon session and then do like your lifting and metcon in one session or another. But it's being efficient with your time too and not like fucking around on your phone between sets.
Yeah, I made a post recently actually about concurrent training, which is like basically just some sort of endurance training, uh, with along with strength training combined in a single program. And the data appears to show that at least for people who are trained, it does appear to be a little bit better, if you want to maximize each adaptation, to spread those sessions out by at least a couple hours, ideally 8 hours, and have like a meal in between. But if you're a novice, or if you're a novice and you're overweight, then novices who are overweight were basically free of any interference effect, meaning that they got just as good gains as people who only did resistance training, even when they had cardio thrown in on top. So just a cool little note there.
Quick question for you all on the warm up cool down piece. I know some gyms, Carson and a few of the gyms there included, had like saunas and they also had hot tubs. And for a while, I was utilizing those. Obviously, I don't have one in my house. I would love to. Benefits of using those, either cool down, I don't even know if that's appropriate as a cool down, but at some point in your training.
So I actually, I'm a TA for a kinesiology class, and a professor asked me to do a lecture on cold water immersion. So I'm in the process of putting that together. But so I just looked at research investigating this recently, and to sum it up, when it comes to muscle and strength adaptations, it will cold water immersion or any form of cold therapy following a workout basically creates a more muscle catabolic environment physiologically, and a not very conducive towards muscle anabolic environment. So it's they basically look at the muscle physiology markers, so certain proteins and muscle protein synthesis versus proteolysis balance, so breakdown, and we could basically conclude that it attenuates muscle growth.
Yeah, basically, like the cold water is an anti-inflammatory effect, or cold temperature is an anti-inflammatory effect. So when you like work out and you're trying to get bigger, you need a certain degree, a certain amount of inflammation, as in your body is trying to recover from the stress of training. So like if you take like ibuprofen or like NSAIDs, it's probably pretty similar in terms of blunting the hypertrophic response. But as far as like the hot tub stuff and like hot therapy, um, I think as far as recovery work goes, I think that's probably a pretty good intervention. Like doing the hot and cold is, a pretty good intervention. And there's like data that shows with the hot, specifically with hot saunas and the hot temperature, if decreasing mortality. Probably something to do with like the cardiovascular effect of the hot weather or hot temperature. So I think like doing it, on your recovery days, probably a good idea. Doing it concurrently with like the training, probably like I don't know what juice, how much if the juice is gonna be worth a squeeze like on your training days, but definitely on like your recovery days, on your Thursdays or Sundays that we have, like doing like a sauna time or like cold tub on those like active recovery days is probably a pretty good intervention, pretty good idea.
Sweet.
All right. And the last question is we got from SFAS, SFAS. What should my taper look like?
Um, I would probably say, you have your date. So I'll probably start turning down the training probably about 2 or 3 weeks out. Like about the 2 week mark, you should probably be done all your hard training and kind of tapering down at that point. I don't know about you, how you feel about that, Sean.
Yeah, I think our SFAS program that we've got, or the selection prep as it's called online, has a built-in taper period that's 2 weeks. Um, your mileage will go down slightly, the lifting percentages as well, and mostly that's just like you need to get in the right headspace to go. I think the biggest thing that I always took away from a couple weeks going in, especially just for like considering Ranger School way back in the day, was they like ramped that up so that you were sprinting into Ranger School. And I know a lot of lieutenants coming up into IBOLC were so burned out, and they shouldn't have been, but they were. Um, they were burned out and they failed out within RAP week because physically it hurt. Because I think like the week before we even went, we took an RPFT, which I'm not saying is like a strenuous event in itself, but part of the tapering process is the mental aspect, and going in going, okay, like I don't have to be the best person on this 6 mile sand run. I don't have to be the first person to finish when you're doing rifle PT. Like you just need to be able to continuously be in the top third, the top half, not the last guy. And so like getting into a state of mind that you're going in, you're competing with a whole bunch of other alpha type individuals, being mature in that phase of the selection or the school that you're in is going to go much further than like any gains you were going to potentially make or think you're going to lose in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think that like, your training, you're not going to get much benefit from like training hard the last couple of weeks, you're only going to potentially worsen your overall your fitness by being overtrained when you head into selection. So yeah, I would just say like 2 weeks, like take the time and like kind of taper down and then like the last couple of days up to like 4 or 5 days beforehand, like do like almost nothing and use that time to like mentally prepare. Because at that point you're really not going to get much out of the training at that point.
Yeah, go over your packing list a bunch, to be honest. Like, have everything laid out so that you know. Because what's really surprising about like every single schoolhouse event that I've ever been to has been you are standing on your feet all the time. You are up, all day. I mean, it sounds like normal. Yeah, I'm on my feet. I'm doing that at work, but it's just a different level because it's the unknown. You might have a general idea of the timeline that you have for that day. They might post it. You might have someone that's in a leadership position, but you still have that anxiety that's gonna like increase your blood pressure the entire day. You're gonna go into events and be like, oh my God, I can smash this RPFT, but for some reason I'm starting today and I feel more tired. Or, I know we just did the layout at SFAS. I'm not ready to go on an unknown distance run. Like, how fast should I be running? And so all these like things that add up are like gonna decrease your physical performance to a degree. And so going in at like full speed is just it's only I think gonna hurt you.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about like not going 100% either on events either.
Oh yeah, yeah. But don't slack off to the point that afterwards, during the boards or some instructor doesn't come up to you and go like, I I know, like I could tell, like you've been crushing the events like all weekend. We know when you're tired. Like, don't be that dude either. Like, just consistency, and then look around you and see how everyone else is sucking. If everyone looks like they're really sucking, still be better than them, but like not by too much.
Little gamesmanship involved with everything you do.
Yeah, but not in physical 100. In physical 100, I would go 100% because that is showing respect to my opponent. See, Netflix, I can do these interviews. I can be like super good. Like, it was really challenging. He pushed me past my breaking point, but I'm so glad because now I know what I can do to myself to prepare for the next event. Thank you. Now, please, can I carry these 6 giant tubs of protein to the waiting lounge?
Anything else that had James?
No, that was all the Q&A questions, but a friend of ours, he is a certain Snake. This isn't his username, if you guys know who I'm talking about. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, yes.
So he was asking about basically longevity and training, or when he means longevity, he really means sustainability. So that is seeing out the long-term bigger picture with your training instead of trying to basically optimize each variable short term or focus too much on optimizing each variable. And then that ends up leading you to, crash and burn or whatever. But so one thing he basically wanted to know was how can we better sort of facilitate like long-term sustainability when it comes to training? Because after all, that is what sort of makes the gains, right? Versus just, doing everything perfectly for a few weeks and then stopping.
Yeah.
I think my attitude on a lot of those things is like whether you're training for an event or just working out, I think there's a distinction between the two. So for example, like if you're training for something, you have a specific event they train for, whether it be like an Ironman, a marathon, train for a selection process or something. So with that inherent like goal in mind, there's going to be a period of, kind of increased intensity and a periodization of your training, if you will. And then with that, there's probably going to, if you train like that for an extended period of time, you probably will burn out because you have, a progression of intensity or volume or whatever. So by training for an event, I would say that's you should be limiting how much training you're actually doing. Whereas if you're like working out to maintain physical fitness, I think it's a different mentality to have where, you're not necessarily pushing yourself 100% every day on every piece that you do, but you're giving it like an 80 to 90% effort where you're not necessarily like maximizing the gains, but you're maintaining what you have and maybe adding a little bit to it. And that's obviously going to be more sustainable for longevity when you're working out versus training. And I think you have to balance like your training and working out sessions, and like how much training you're doing per year too.
I think it also comes down to like that what's that goal that you have on your wall? Bobby's talking about working out or training. If you're the type of person that gets motivated by like a yearly challenge, whether it's, I want to, like Bobby said, I want to do a marathon, an ultra, I want to do an Ironman, I want to do a short distance sprint triathlon, like understanding that you're going to lose some aspect of maybe your fitness that you had before in order to facilitate, reaching that goal. But then also when you start switching back and forth and being like, hey, I just want to be a functional human, like you do have to change it up a bit. Otherwise, you will get into that position where I've plateaued. Like, what do I need to do to get out of this hole? And that's where we talk about like, oh my God, like that mindset of I'm fearful of trying something new that I know before maybe I would have been easier to adjust to. I would have been more fit in the program that I've written. But now it's like I've got to overcome this mental hurdle more than the physical one. And I think plateauing is for me at my point in my training is like kind of where I'm at. Like my bench, I don't think will ever get any bigger. My squat certainly won't unless I really, really do like a squat heavy program, but it's being comfortable going, okay, like I'm going to make small goals throughout the year. Like I want to be able to run a sub 19-minute 5K. All right, I'll do that for 6 months. I'll stay like running, but maybe the next one after that will be a 20K that I want to do, averaging like sub 7. So like if you're the type of person that wants longevity, but create kind of consistent goals that complement each other throughout the, a year, 2, 3 year process. And that way you're changing it up enough so that your body feels like you're getting something out of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I really enjoy. That's a good point of like having small goals. Personally, like I just at this point just work out. I don't have anything I'm training for. Like I just know that I probably should do about 2 or 3 hours of cardio a week. I want to get like 4 or 5 lifting sessions a week, stuff like that. So that's like my thought process is that I'm not necessarily training for anything, so I don't necessarily need to like be super intense or purposeful with my training, but just overall like working out to stay physically fit. It's like that mentality that that kind of switches back and forth between training versus working out. Not to say that one's better than the other. There's nothing wrong with just like working out too. I think people have that negative connotation between like, are you training or working out? I think people think that like you have to be training for something all the time, and that's not necessarily true.
Ultimately, though, you just want to look good naked. Like
Ultimately, yeah.
training or working out doesn't matter if that's the end goal. Like that, if that's your motivating fact, just be comfortable to tell people that because there's nothing wrong with it. Because the beach season might only be 3 months out of the year, but those lights in your bathroom don't lie.
Right on.
Good questions. Very good questions. Should we start wrapping it?
Yeah, it's so weird. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We're doing this every 2 weeks. I'm throwing up the 2 sign for the YouTubers.
Any last minute thoughts or pitches you guys might have?
We'll get the scholars program up soon, so you can apply to that.
Yeah, I think we're set.
Yeah, I'll throw a pitch in for James. James has really been kind of increasing his coaching clientele. So if you guys are really interested in kind of bumping it up, I'm actually really happy that James came on our team and started helping out the coaching because that's something that people have always asked us about us doing coaching, but neither Sean or I really have the time or mental energy to really do the coaching stuff. So I'm really glad that James is here to offer that service to you guys that want to take kind of your fitness and training to the next level. Additionally, we have been like teasing the app now for like I feel like last year we've been teasing the app. Yeah. It's coming. It's coming. Our programmer guy, he just had a kid too, so he's busy as well, but it's in the works. Our goal with the app is to kind of make things easier to kind of track things. So we'll have like a way to track your workouts and your lifts, a way to like compare results to like a leaderboard type thing, and some other things that we're excited to kind of show you guys. And when it comes out, we'll talk more about it when it comes out. But that's in the horizon. The app's coming out soon-ish.
Soon.
All right. With that, guys, that'll wrap up this episode of We're Back.
Version 66.
Yeah. Hit us up if you have any questions. You have us all our info on the gram. We have our website, we have your emails. Love to hear you guys comments, and I really enjoy hearing from you guys. So if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to hit us up. All right. With that, peace.
Peace.
See ya.
Later.